Can the stillness of the celestial realm conceal the fall of its radiant guardians? What stirs within a heart of eternal light when it turns to the fleeting allure of mortal flesh? Does the earth quake at the birth of giants born from a forbidden covenant beneath the stars? Will the echoes of their pride resound beyond the flood's relentless purification? Who will rise to hear the whisper of divine justice amidst the shadows of rebellion? In the fragile dawn of creation, when the earth was yet a pristine canvas unmarred by the passage of time, its vast plains stretched beneath a sky adorned with stars, each a silent sentinel over a nascent world, their light a testament to the divine hand that shaped the void into beauty, a symphony of light and shadow that spoke of order. Mankind multiplied, their voices weaving a gentle hymn across the wilderness, a melody that rose from the heart of the land, their daughters emerging like the first blossoms of spring, radiant yet delicate in their innocence, a reflection of the grace bestowed upon them by their Creator, a gift that shone with purity. Rivers carved their paths through forests, thick with the scent of pine and wild honeysuckle, their waters a mirror to the heavens, their currents singing a song of purity that echoed through the valleys. A harmony that spoke of peace, a rhythm that danced with the wind. The wind carried the breath of eternity, a soft caress that stirred the grasses and whispered secrets of the divine, a voice that spoke of love and purpose. And the sun cast golden threads across the land, illuminating a harmony unbroken, until a shadow crept forth, subtle yet insidious. Within the human heart, a whisper of wickedness took root, a seed planted in the soil of free will, growing like a vine entwining the roots of a sacred oak, its tendrils spreading unseen beneath the surface of innocence. A silent harbinger of the chaos that would soon engulf the world, a darkness that would challenge the light. The book of Genesis unveils a lost epic, a time before the flood, when the sacred boundary between heaven and earth was torn asunder by an act of defiance that reverberated through the cosmos, a breach that would alter the course of history, a rupture that would bring judgment upon the earth. When men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves from all whom they chose. Sang the key, 6:1-2. This was no fleeting transgression. It was a rebellion that fractured the divine order, its resonance shaking the celestial courts and casting a pall of sorrow over the mortal realm. A defiance that would invite the wrath of the Almighty, a sin that would echo through the ages, an age shrouded in mystery, preserved in the cryptic verses of Scripture. Now stirs to life, a tale of fallen angels, towering giants, and the judgment that would cleanse the world in water and fire. A narrative etched in the memory of the faithful, and a warning to those who would follow. A story that speaks of both loss and redemption. In the shadow of Mount Hermon, where jagged peaks rise like the broken teeth of an ancient giant piercing the heavens, the air grew dense with the scent of smoldering myrrh and the faint tang of scorched earth, a fragrance heavy with the weight of a sorrow yet to unfold. A lament carried on the breeze that spoke of impending doom, a whisper of despair. The stars above flickered, their light waning as if recoiling from the blasphemy unfolding below. And a low, mournful hum emanated from the ground, like the lament of 1,000 unseen spirits trapped within the stone. Their voices a chorus of despair that rose to the heavens, a cry that pierced the night. The earth trembled beneath the touch of radiant feet, its surface kissed by a presence both majestic and profane. A duality that rent the fabric of creation. And the night pulsed with the rhythm of a forbidden oath, its cadence a prelude to eternal consequence that would echo through the ages. a sound that would not fade into oblivion, a warning that lingered in the air. What compels a being of eternal light to forsake the glory of heaven for the frailty of mortal flesh, a choice that defies the very purpose of its existence and invites the wrath of the divine, a fall that shatters the harmony of the cosmos? What hunger consumes a soul crafted in the presence of the Almighty, drawing it to the ephemeral beauty of dust? A lure that promises much, yet delivers ruin and despair, a temptation that leads to destruction? The Watchers, celestial guardians entrusted with the oversight of mankind, convened upon that sacred mount, 200 in number, their leader Samjaza cloaked in a radiance now shadowed by a growing desire, a light dimmed by the weight of his intent, a flame that flickered in the face of temptation, a spark that would ignite a fire of judgment. "I fear I alone will bear the burden of this sin," he murmured, his voice a tremor against the wind sweeping the heights. A confession swallowed by the night, a plea lost to the darkness of his choice, a cry that went unanswered in the silence of his rebellion. But the others, their eyes ablaze with a forbidden longing, swore a mutual oath: "We will bind ourselves to this path and turn not back." Their voices a unison of resolve that sealed their fate. A pact forged in the shadow of Mount Hermon that would bring judgment upon the earth. A covenant that defied the will of God. Their descent shook the earth, their forms a dazzling spectacle that left men speechless, awestruck by the sight of angels stepping into a realm not their own. Their beauty a lure that masked the peril within, their intent a profound betrayal of the sacred charge entrusted to them by the Creator, a transgression that would echo through the annals of time, a sin that would bring forth the flood. The daughters of men, entranced by their ethereal glow, yielded to their advances, their hearts captivated by a promise of power and beauty that masked the peril within, a seduction that drew them into the abyss of rebellion, a fall from grace that mirrored the Watchers' own, a descent that would seal their fate. From these unions sprang the Nephilim, giants of towering stature, their strength a marvel to behold, their spirits a twisted fusion of divine rebellion and mortal frailty. A lineage born of a pact that defied the heavens and invited the wrath of the divine. A race that would bring desolation to the earth. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. These were the mighty men of old, the men of renown, sang the key 6-4. Yet their renown was a hollow crown, forged in the fires of pride, violence, and an insatiable hunger that devoured all in its path, leaving desolation where life once thrived. A testament to the cost of their father's folly, a legacy that would haunt the earth for generations, a shadow that darkened the soul of creation, a curse that lingered in the air. The Nephilim strode across the earth, their footsteps carving deep fissures into the once lush plains, a scar upon the face of creation that spoke of their dominion, a wound that bled into the soil, a mark of their rebellion. Where vineyards and olive groves had flourished under the sun's gentle gaze, stone citadels rose, constructed by their colossal hands, their walls a mockery of the natural order they had disrupted, a defiance etched in every block, a testament to their belief in their own supremacy, a pride that would crumble under the weight of judgment. Their eyes burned like embers in the fading light. Their voices thundered like the roar of a tempest, striking terror into the hearts of men who cowered in their shadow. Their presence a blight upon the land, a darkness that swallowed the light of hope, a terror that reigned supreme. They consumed everything, crops ripped from the soil with ruthless hands, livestock slaughtered without mercy, and the lives of those who dared to resist, their blood staining the earth a crimson hue that cried out to the heavens, a plea for justice from the innocent, a lament that rose above the din of their tyranny, a cry that would not be ignored. Entire tribes fell to their knees, mistaking them for deities, erecting altars of stone and bone to names like Og, Arba, Anak, and Gilgamesh. Their chants a dirge that drowned the memory of the Creator, a hymn of idolatry that rose from the ashes of faith, a worship that turned their hearts from the true God, a blasphemy that invited the flood. The name of the Almighty, once a song on human lips, faded into silence, supplanted by the worship of these titans born of a forbidden lineage. Their presence a shadow that darkened the soul of the earth, a curse that lingered in the air, a stain that would require cleansing. The Watchers, swollen with pride in their offspring, unveiled secrets once veiled from mortal eyes, a Pandora's box of forbidden knowledge that unleashed chaos upon the world, a legacy of destruction that would bring judgment upon their heads, a sin that would bring forth the deluge. Azazel, a chief among them, taught the crafting of swords, shields, and mirrors, adorning women with enchantments that bewitched the mind and men with instruments of war that shattered the peace of the valleys. A heritage of violence that stained the earth with blood, a gift that turned to poison. Others revealed the mysteries of the stars, the arts of sorcery that twisted the natural order into a tool of darkness, and the manipulation of creation's delicate balance, turning herbs into potions of malevolent power that corrupted the heart, a knowledge that defied the will of the divine, a transgression that invited wrath. The earth groaned under this corruption, its rivers running red as if weeping for the defilement they bore, their waters tainted with the blood of the innocent, a lament that rose to the heavens, a cry for redemption, a plea that would be answered. The skies darkened, their hues muted as if mourning the loss of divine harmony, and the air grew heavy with the stench of decay, a miasma that clung to the soul, a reminder of the price of transgression, a warning that hung in the stillness, a portent of the judgment to come. The earth was corrupt in God's sight and filled with violence, sang the key 611, a cry that ascended to the throne of the Almighty, a plea for justice from a creation betrayed by those meant to guard it, a supplication that would not go unanswered, a call that stirred the heart of the divine to action, a summons that would bring the flood. What does it mean to profane a creation consecrated by the hands of the Almighty? A gift bestowed with love, now twisted by rebellion. A desecration that invites judgment. A sin that demands atonement. How does a world, birthed in the perfection of divine will, descend into the abyss of its own making? A fall from grace that stains the soul with the mark of sin. A plunge that requires redemption. The psalmist proclaims, "The heavens are yours, the earth also is yours, the world and all its fullness. You have founded them." Thean 89:11. Yet, when rebellion twists the fabric of creation, does it not cry out for the redemption of its maker? A restoration that only divine justice can bring? A healing that mends the broken? A salvation that restores the lost? When pride blinds the heart, does it not deafen the soul to the whisper of eternal truth, leaving it to wander in the shadows of its own devising, a prisoner of its own hubris, a captive to its own desires, a shadow cast by its own making, a darkness that invites the light of judgment? The Nephilim's appetite grew ravenous, a hunger that knew no bounds, consuming all that lay in its path with a voracity that defied the natural order, a gluttony that devoured the earth itself, a feast that left only ruin, a desolation that spoke of their fall. They turned first against men, their hands stained with the blood of their kin, a betrayal of the brotherhood they were meant to protect, a sin that echoed through the generations, a wound that deepened with each life taken, a scar that marred the face of humanity. Then against beasts, their roars echoing through the forests as they tore life from the land, leaving silence where once there had been song, a desolation that mourned the loss of harmony, a quiet that spoke of death, a stillness that bore witness to their tyranny. Finally, they turned upon one another, clans of giants clashing in battles that shook the mountains to their roots, their blood staining the valleys a deep crimson, a testament to their self-destruction born of pride, a cycle of violence that consumed their own flesh, a war that mirrored the chaos within, a conflict that hastened their end. Men, corrupted by their influence, mirrored this brutality, their hearts hardening into stone, their hands wielding weapons forged in the fires of envy and greed, a reflection of the chaos that had taken hold, a mirror to the darkness that reigned, a shadow that darkened the soul. War became a sacred rite, violence a hymn sung in the shadow of their altars, its notes a dirge for a world lost to its own making, a requiem for the innocence that had once reigned, a lament for the peace that had been shattered, a cry that rose to the heavens. Cities of stone, adorned with the skulls of the fallen, rose as monuments to their arrogance, their walls a defiance against the heavens, a challenge to the authority they had forsaken, a testament to their belief in their own invincibility, a pride that would crumble under the weight of divine wrath, a hubris that would be their undoing. The seasons faltered, the sun's light waned to a sickly pallor, and the ground exhaled a bitter stench, as if creation itself recoiled from the abomination it harbored, its very essence crying out in protest against the corruption that had taken hold. A groan that rose to the ears of the divine, a plea that would not be ignored, a call that would bring the flood. Yet, amidst this desolation, a righteous man walked with steady steps, his presence a light in the encroaching darkness, a beacon of hope in a land shrouded in the smoke of their altars, a flame that refused to be extinguished, a witness to the power of faith. Enoch, seventh from Adam, moved through the scorched fields, his voice a soft lament against the roar of the giants, a whisper of truth in a world deafened by its own pride, a call to repentance that pierced the veil of ignorance, a message that burned with the fire of divine justice. You sons of heaven have defiled the earth, he declared. His words carried on the wind like a prophecy of doom, a warning etched in the fabric of time, a message that spoke of judgment and redemption. A call that would not be silenced. The Most High will judge you, and the waters will engulf all in their cleansing tide, washing away the stain of your rebellion, a purification that will restore what you have broken, a renewal that will bring forth a new beginning, a hope that will rise from the ashes. Few heeded his warning, most turned away in scorn, their hearts deafened by the clamor of their idols, their eyes blind to the judgment that loomed on the horizon, a blindness born of their own making, a refusal to see the truth, a rejection of the light. But heaven stirred. The faithful angels wept, their tears falling like silent rain upon the earth, a lament for the fall of their brethren, a sorrow that mingled with the cries of the innocent, and the throne of God blazed with the unyielding fire of justice, its light a promise of reckoning that would not be delayed, a flame that would consume the wicked and preserve the righteous, a beacon that guided the faithful through the storm, a light that would not be extinguished. Enoch's visions pierced the veil of eternity, lifting him to the heavens where he beheld the books of judgment open, their pages inscribed with names both preserved and erased. A record of fidelity and transgression that spanned the ages, a ledger that held the fate of all, a testament to the justice of God. The mountains will shake, the stars will fall from their courses, he warned, his voice a thunder in the silence. And the armies of the Lord will descend with glory to bring judgment upon the wicked, to restore what has been defiled, to reclaim the earth for its rightful king, to establish a kingdom of righteousness, to bring peace where chaos reigned. The watchers, trembling in the remnants of their pride, pleaded for mercy, offering written petitions to the Creator, their hands shaking as they sought to undo the consequences of their choice. A desperate bid to reclaim the light they had lost. A plea that rang hollow in the courts of heaven. A cry that fell on deaf ears. A supplication that would not be heard. But Enoch returned with a heart heavy with sorrow, his eyes reflecting the weight of divine decree, a mirror to the judgment that awaited, a vision that burned with the truth of their fate, a sight that spoke of their doom. There will be no peace for you. Your children will perish in the flood's embrace, and you will witness the ruin of all you have wrought, a spectacle of your own making that will haunt the ages, a legacy of despair that will echo through eternity, a reminder of your fall. What is the price of defying the divine order? A rebellion that turns light into shadow, glory into dust, a choice that severs the soul from its source, a fall that invites the wrath of the divine, a sin that demands atonement. Does pride veil the eyes from the certainty of judgment, leaving the soul to face the consequences of its folly in the silence of its own despair? A prisoner of its own hubris, a captive to its own desires, a shadow cast by its own making, a darkness that invites the light of judgment, a fate that cannot be escaped. The watchers, once radiant in the courts of heaven, now cowered within their stone palaces, their glory diminished by the stain of their transgression, their voices stilled by the weight of their chains. A silence that spoke of their fall, a quiet that bore witness to their defeat, a stillness that echoed with the justice of God. The Nephilim, blind to their impending fate, erected towers to rival the heavens, their stones a testament to a belief that their might could challenge the Almighty, a hubris that mocked the very hands that had shaped them, a defiance that would crumble under the weight of divine wrath, a pride that would be their undoing, a folly that would bring their end. Yet their souls decayed, rotting beneath the weight of their pride, a corruption that seeped into the marrow of their being, a poison that turned their strength into weakness, a decay that mirrored the state of their hearts, and their unity fractured. Clan turned against clan, their battles a cacophony of rage and despair, and the earth became a battlefield of their own devising, its surface scarred by their hubris, its rivers choked with the debris of their fallen dreams, a landscape of ruin that mirrored the chaos within, a testament to the futility of their rebellion, a proof of their downfall. Amid this turmoil, another figure emerged from the dust of a broken world, Noah, a man of humble faith, his spirit untainted by the corruption that engulfed his generation, a solitary flame in a sea of darkness, a light that refused to be extinguished, a witness to the power of faith, a beacon that guided the faithful through the storm. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. Sang the Key 6:9. A testament to the power of fidelity in a world lost to its own making. A proof of the strength of obedience in the face of adversity. A a sign of the grace that sustained him. While the Nephilim waged their wars of dominance, their roars a thunder that shook the valleys. Noah tended the soil with calloused hands, his heart lifted to the heavens in silent communion, a prayer offered in the stillness of the night, a dialogue with the divine that sustained him, a connection that anchored him in the chaos, a bond that gave him strength. One night, beneath the shelter of an ancient fig tree, its leaves rustling with the breath of the divine, a light descended, not of flame that consumes, but of glory that warms yet does not burn, a presence that filled the air with a holiness beyond comprehension, a radiance that spoke of salvation amidst judgment, a hope that pierced the darkness, a promise that would endure, a voice, deep and resonant, spoke from the radiance, its words a command that carried the weight of judgment and the promise of salvation. The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and outside with pitch, sang the key, 6:13-14. A directive that would become the cornerstone of a new beginning. A call to obedience that would preserve a remnant through the deluge. A mandate that would shape the future of the world. A command that would bring hope from despair. Noah obeyed without hesitation, his faith a shield against the mockery that surrounded him, a bulwark against the derision of a world blind to its fate, a trust that anchored him in the face of unbelief, a strength that sustained him through the trial, a light that shone in the darkness. Day after day, he labored, his hands shaping a vessel of salvation amidst the jeers of a skeptical throng, a testament to his unwavering resolve, a monument to his faith in the unseen, a work that spoke of hope. Where is your God, Noah? They taunted, their voices laced with scorn, a chorus of doubt that echoed through the plains, a challenge that sought to undermine his trust, a mockery that tested his spirit. Why build a ship in this arid land? A monument to your delusion? A folly that mocks the sun? A dream that will crumble in the dust? A waste of strength in a world that laughs at your hope? A vision that defies reason? But Noah's silence was his strength. His faith a fortress unassailable by the barbs of unbelief. His every stroke a testament to his trust in the unseen. A labor of love offered to the one who had called him. A work that spoke louder than words. A deed that bore witness to his devotion. In the heavens, the archangels, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel, received their divine mandates, their wings beating with the urgency of justice. A symphony of purpose that reverberated through the celestial realms. A harmony that contrasted with the discord below. A call to action that would bring balance to the earth. A mission that would restore order. Michael bound the watchers in chains of fire, their radiance dimmed by the weight of their rebellion, casting them into the depths where their cries would echo unheard. A prison forged from the consequences of their choice. A silence that spoke of their fall. A judgment that sealed their fate. A punishment that would endure. Raphael seized Azazel, dragging him to the abyss of Dudael, where darkness swallowed his prideful wails, sealing him until the day of final judgment. A sentence etched in the silence of eternity. A consequence that mirrored his transgression. A doom that would not be lifted. Gabriel descended to the fortresses of the Nephilim, sowing discord among them, turning their strength into a weapon of their own destruction as clan rose against clan, their unity shattered by the seeds of mistrust. a division that hastened their end, a chaos that mirrored their hearts, a strife that brought their downfall. Uriel, with a voice like thunder softened by mercy, proclaimed the impending flood to the children of the earth, a final call to repentance before the waters fell, a plea that fell on deaf ears amidst the clamor of their pride, a warning ignored in the arrogance of their hearts, a message that would be their undoing, a cry that would be silenced by the deluge. The appointed day arrived, a moment suspended between mercy and wrath, a pause in the rhythm of creation before the storm broke loose, a breath held in anticipation of the judgment to come, a silence that preceded the deluge, a stillness that spoke of the end. The skies darkened, a shroud drawn over a world ripe for reckoning, and the fountains of the great deep burst forth with a roar that shook the foundations of the earth, a sound that reverberated through the valleys and mountains, a cry that announced the end, a thunder that spoke of divine justice, a proclamation that would not be denied. On that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst open, and the windows of heaven were opened. Sang the key 711. A deluge unleashed from the heart of creation itself, a tide of judgment that spared neither man nor beast, a force that swept away the works of pride with a relentlessness that brooked no resistance, a cleansing that would restore the balance, a purification that would bring renewal. Rain fell like molten fury, its drops sharp and unrelenting, a liquid tide that cleansed the earth of its corruption, a baptism of wrath that washed away the stain of rebellion, a deluge that brought forth a new beginning. The Nephilim ascended the mountains, their roars a defiant hymn against the heavens, their forms towering above the rising waters, a silhouette of rebellion against the divine will, a challenge that mocked the power of the Creator, a pride that would be their downfall, a defiance that would be their end. But the flood rose with merciless resolve, a force that brooked no defiance, its waters climbing higher with each passing hour, a tide that engulfed all in its path, a judgment that spared none who had turned from the light, a wrath that consumed the wicked. Gilgamesh, mighty among them, cursed the skies with a voice that shook the peaks, his words a challenge swallowed by a whirlpool's embrace as it dragged him into the depths, his strength no match for the judgment that claimed him, his pride a memory lost to the waves, a legacy drowned in the abyss, a fall that spoke of his folly. Og, the colossus of the eastern ranges, swam with arms like oars, his massive form cutting through the waves. But his strength failed as the waters closed over him, his final roar a lament lost to the storm, a cry that faded into the silence of the abyss, a testament to the futility of resistance, a defeat that marked the end of his reign. The Watchers, bound in their subterranean prisons, heard the fading screams of their offspring, a requiem for the folly that had birthed them, their own chains a silent witness to their fall, their pride a memory drowned in the darkness of their confinement. A silence that spoke of their defeat, a quiet that bore witness to the justice of God, a stillness that echoed with the triumph of the divine. Within the ark, Noah knelt in prayer, the timbers groaning under the assault of waves, their creaks a symphony of survival against the tempest's rage, a sound that mingled with the rhythm of the flood, a melody of hope amidst the chaos, a harmony that spoke of salvation. Yet his heart remained anchored in trust, a stillness amidst the chaos that surrounded him, a peace that transcended the tumult of the deluge, a faith that held firm in the face of the storm, a strength that sustained him through the trial, a light that shone in the darkness. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him. and I am helped. Therefore my heart exults, and with my song I give thanks to him. Thean 28:7. A psalm sung in the silence of his soul, a melody of faith that rose above the storm, a hymn of gratitude offered in the shadow of salvation, a praise that echoed through the timbers, a worship that lifted his spirit. For 40 days and nights, the deluge prevailed, its waters rising to cover the highest peaks, a cleansing tide that swept away all flesh save those within the ark, a judgment that spared only the righteous, a purification that restored the balance of creation, a renewal that brought forth a new beginning, a hope that rose from the ashes. The Nephilim's names were erased from the celestial scrolls, their towers reduced to a muddy grave, their legacy buried beneath the weight of divine wrath, a memory consigned to the dust of history, a tale that would serve as a warning to generations yet unborn, a lesson etched in the silence. The heavens recorded every detail, the scales of justice balanced as the stars shone once more with renewed intensity, a celebration of righteousness restored, a light that pierced the darkness of the flood's aftermath, a testimony to the power of divine judgment, a sign that the earth had been reclaimed, a proof that the wicked would fall. As the waters receded, the ark came to rest upon the mountains of Ararat, its timbers silent against the stillness of a cleansed world, a vessel of salvation grounded on the hope of renewal, a sanctuary that had weathered the storm, a refuge that had preserved life amidst the deluge, a testament to the faithfulness of God. Noah stepped onto the earth, the air sharp with the breath of a new beginning, its scent a mixture of damp soil and the faint whisper of budding life, a fragrance that spoke of resurrection amidst the ruin, a promise carried on the wind, a hope that filled the silence, a sign of restoration. The horizon stretched before him, a canvas of hope painted with the first light of a new dawn, a vision of restoration that filled his heart with awe, a sight that spoke of the faithfulness of God, a promise that would endure. He built an altar of unhewn stones, their rugged surfaces a testament to the simplicity of faith, a monument to the God who had spared him, and offered sacrifices of a pure heart, the smoke rising like incense to the heavens, a prayer of gratitude offered in the wake of judgment, a fragrance that ascended as a plea for mercy, a offering that spoke of reconciliation, a worship that honored the divine. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again strike down every living thing as I have done. Sang the key 821. A promise born of mercy amidst the recognition of human frailty. A covenant that tempered justice with grace. A declaration that spoke of a new relationship between Creator and creation. A bond that would endure through the ages. A rainbow arched across the firmament, its colors a covenant etched in light. A bridge between heaven and earth. A sign of hope that endured. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth, sang the key 913. A reminder that hope endures even in the wake of judgment. A beacon for the faithful in the days to come. A promise that would stand as a testament to the faithfulness of God. A light that would guide the righteous through the shadows. A hope that would not fade. Yet, the echoes of the Nephilim lingered, a shadow that refused to fade into the annals of oblivion. A whisper that haunted the descendants of the saved. A reminder of the rebellion that had once shaken the foundations of creation. A legacy that refused to be silenced. Among the sons of Noah, whispers of giants persisted. Anakim, Rephaim, Emim, vestiges of a corrupted lineage that haunted the land, a presence that lingered in the tales of the tribes, a specter that loomed over the future, a challenge to the faith of the faithful. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in their eyes. Don Soki 13:33. A confession of fear that gripped the hearts of the spies sent to scout the promised land, a tremor of doubt that echoed through the camp of Israel, a challenge to the faith of those who would claim their inheritance, a test of courage in the face of the unknown, a trial that would shape their destiny. These were not the titans of old, their stature diminished by the flood's cleansing tide, but their legacy cast a long shadow, a presence that lingered in the stories of the people, a warning that the seeds of rebellion could sprout anew even after the waters had receded, a threat that would test the resolve of the righteous, a shadow that would demand a response. Centuries unfurled like the pages of an ancient scroll, each turn revealing the unfolding of divine purpose, a narrative woven with the threads of faith and obedience, a tapestry that spoke of redemption and restoration, a story that guided the faithful through the ages, and God's chosen people marched forth under the banner of his promise. Their footsteps a testament to the power of trust in the unseen, a journey guided by the hand of the divine, a path illuminated by the light of hope. Led by Joshua, they confronted the giants of Canaan, their faith a shield against the terror of their foes, a light that pierced the darkness of their fear, a strength drawn from the presence of the Almighty, a power that turned weakness into victory, a force that overcame the impossible, that overcame. Do not fear them, for the Lord your God is with you. He will fight for you. Don Soki 14-9. Joshua proclaimed, his voice a clarion call to trust, a rallying cry that steadied the hearts of the wavering, a promise that turned doubt into determination, a word that ignited the flame of courage, a declaration that spoke of divine protection. City by city, the Anakim fell, Hebron, Debir, Anab, their strongholds crumbling under the sword of faith, their walls reduced to rubble by the power of obedience. A victory wrought not by human might, but by the hand of the Almighty working through his people, a triumph that echoed through the ages, a song of deliverance that rose from the ruins, a hymn of praise that honored the name of God. Og of Bashan, the last of the Rephaim, met his end, his iron bed a relic of a vanquished era, his kingdom toppled by the faith that moved mountains, a testament to the power of divine deliverance, a sign that no giant could stand against the will of God, a proof that the righteous would prevail, a victory that spoke of the triumph of the faithful. But the shadow of the giants endured, a specter that refused to be silenced, its whispers carried on the winds of time, a reminder of the rebellion that had once shaken the earth, a legacy that lingered in the hearts of men, a presence that demanded a response. Among the Philistines arose Goliath, his stature a towering challenge, his armor gleaming like a beacon of arrogance, a monument to the pride that had birthed his kind, a heritage of the Nephilim, reborn in lesser form, a shadow of the past, reborn in the present, a test of the faithful. For 40 days, he taunted the armies of Israel from the valley of Elah, his voice a thunder that rolled across the plains, a challenge that sought to break the spirit of the faithful, a roar that echoed with the pride of his ancestors. Choose a man to fight me. If he prevails, we will be your servants. If I prevail, you will serve us. Ger Samuel 17:8-9. The camp fell silent, the hearts of warriors quailing before his might. their courage faltering under the weight of his shadow. A fear that gripped the soul like a vice. A doubt that threatened to undo them. A despair that darkened the horizon. Yet, from the flocks emerged David, a shepherd boy armed with 5 smooth stones plucked from the brook, and an unshakable faith that burned brighter than any blade, a light that outshone the giant's gleam, a strength drawn from the heart of God, a power that turned the weak into the mighty, a hope that defied the odds. You come to me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. 1 Samuel 17:45. He declared, his voice steady as the stone that flew from his sling, a missile guided by the hand of the divine, a weapon forged in the fires of trust, a shot that carried the weight of faith, a strike that would change the course of history. With a single strike, Goliath fell, his massive form crashing to the earth like a tree rotted by pride, a testament that faith prevails where strength fails, that the smallest heart can topple the mightiest foe when anchored in the divine. A victory that spoke of the power of God, a triumph that resounded through the ages. David ran forward, seizing the giant's own sword, and with one blow severed his head, the ground trembling as the Philistine army fled in panic, the fear that once bound men now turning against their champions. A rout born of the realization that their strength was but a shadow before the power of the Lord. A defeat that marked the end of their reign, a flight that spoke of their fear. Under David's reign, the final giants fell, their lineage extinguished by the hand of faith. A purging of the remnants of rebellion that had lingered since the days of Noah, a cleansing that completed the work begun by the flood, a fulfillment of the promise of judgment, a conclusion to the tale of the Nephilim. Ishbi-Benob, wielding a spear of 300 shekels of bronze, a weapon that gleamed with the promise of death, was struck down by Abishai, son of Zeruiah, his strength no match for the valor of the faithful, a fall that echoed with the justice of God, a defeat that spoke of the end, a victory that honored the divine. Saph, another descendant of the Rephaim, fell to Sibbecai, the Hushathite, in the heat of battle. His form crumpled beneath the weight of divine justice, a collapse that mirrored the ruin of his kind, a sign that the time had come, a proof of the power of faith. Lami, brother of Goliath, whose spear shaft was like a weaver's beam, a symbol of the pride that had birthed him, was defeated by Elhanan, son of Jaarah-Origim, his legacy severed by the sword of obedience, a blow that struck at the heart of their lineage, a triumph that sealed their fate, a victory that brought peace, and a nameless giant, marked by 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all, a monster in the eyes of men, an aberration born of corrupted blood, was brought low by the faithful, his fall a silent testament to the completion of divine judgment, a success that marked the end of an era, a closure to the chapter of rebellion, a fulfillment of the promise. David, no longer the boy of the valley, but a king crowned with courage, led his people with a faith that guided their swords, a ruler whose heart remained steadfast in the presence of the living God, a shepherd turned warrior whose trust in the Almighty turned the tide of battle, a leader whose reign brought peace to a land once ravaged by giants, a king whose rule honored the name of the Lord. The battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. 1 Samuel 17:47. A truth proven as the profane lineage of the Nephilim, fragmented since the flood, was eradicated stone by stone, sword by sword. Their cities crumbled into dust. Their names became a warning etched in the annals of history, a cautionary tale for generations to come. And their souls, bodiless spirits, wandered as defeated echoes, awaiting the final judgment in the silence of their defeat. A remnant of a rebellion that could not stand against the power of the divine. A shadow that faded into the past. A memory that served as a lesson. What giants lurk within the depths of your own spirit, casting shadows upon the light of your faith. A challenge to the peace that dwells within, a test of your resolve. A trial that shapes your soul. Do pride, fear, or desire rise to challenge the whisper of the divine? Their voices a clamor against the stillness of your soul. A tempest that seeks to overwhelm. A storm that threatens to break your trust. A force that seeks to pull you from the path. The tale of the Nephilim is a mirror held to the soul, a reflection of the struggles that dwell within, a narrative that speaks to the heart, a story that warns and guides, a lesson that instructs. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Chum Gong 6C 18. A caution that echoes through the ages, a call to humility in the face of temptation, a reminder of the cost of rebellion, a warning that leads to wisdom. Yet, it is also a beacon of hope, a light that guides the faithful, a promise of redemption that shines in the darkness, a salvation that lifts the fallen. The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth. Thai Thien 145:18. Seek the still, small voice that guided Noah through the storm, that steadied David against the giant, a whisper that speaks in the silence of the heart, a presence that offers strength in the face of adversity, a comfort that sustains through the trial, a light that illuminates the path. In the tumult of life, will you build your ark of faith, a refuge against the floods of temptation that seek to overwhelm you, a vessel that carries you through the trials of the world, a sanctuary that preserves your soul, a haven that offers peace, like the Shepherd King? Will you confront the giants of your heart, pride, envy, doubt, with trust in the Almighty? A faith that turns stones into weapons of victory, a belief that transforms the weak into the mighty, a strength that overcomes the impossible, a power that brings triumph. The rainbow stands eternal, a sign that hope endures even when shadows return, a covenant unbroken that spans the heavens and the earth, a bridge between the divine and the human, a promise that lights the way, a hope that will not fade, hope that will, as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. Sang the Key 8:22. A declaration that the faithful may cling to, a light to guide them through the darkest valleys. A reminder that the God who judged the Nephilim is the same God who offers salvation to those who seek him with a humble heart. A refuge for the weary, a strength for the broken, a hope for the lost, a savior for the repentant.